You're probably aware that over the past 3 years, the committee's been back and forth with your predecessor on the issue of the Poolbeg Incinerator and that project, and that's the issue I want to address to you today. Now, to date, about 108 million has been committed to that project over a 10-year period, and your department's responsible for in the region of 10% of that funding, and nothing's been built yet. So we're quickly approaching 50% of the original costs that were intended for that project, 266 million. And still nothing's been built. Those costs have now ballooned to about 500 million, according to the city manager in Dublin City Council, and still nothing's been built. Europe has told us that one of the firms was procured illegally, so they're gone since January. There's a very serious conflict of interest case still to be adjudicated on at Europe. We've had 4 formal reports since 2012, each of which have focused on weak governance and poor financial management. Your department has had a person on the project board, but that project board has never actually met formally, so we've no minutes as to what they've been doing for the past 10 years. And what I'm trying to get to the bottom of, which I wasn't able to get to the bottom of with your predecessor, is what is the department's position now on this project?
Okay, thank you, Deputy. Poolbeg, as you know, is a project being progressed by Dublin City Council on behalf of the 4 Dublin local authorities. And they're doing that as part of their implementation of the waste management plan for Dublin. And those responsibilities are assigned statutorily to the local authorities under the Waste Management Acts. And apart from some initial grant assistance of about 7.5 million up to 2005 at early stages in the project's conception, if you like, the department has provided no exchequer funding towards the project, and it is to be funded through the contractual arrangement between the local authorities and the private partner. So accountability for the project rests at local government level, and I think that accountability arrangement is active. When you look at the local government auditor's report, and you've pointed yourself, Deputy, to the issues that the auditor had raised, and the discussions that have taken place by the elected members, and the consideration by the Council's audit committee, and indeed changes that have been made in the governance arrangements which have been subject to more positive comment in the auditor's report for 2012. I think the project has been discussed here in the House, I think in one of the other committees on a number of occasions, most recently earlier this year. And it is, as far as the department is concerned, it is a matter for the Dublin local authorities to carry the project forward.
Everyone who's looked at this project, from Europe to Capital Report to the local government audit services, have had a problem with this project. I mean, the costs have now gone over 100 million and nothing has been built. It's been delayed for 10 years. At what point will the department look at this properly, given that it is the biggest local authority under your remit?
As you say, Deputy, there have been a number of issues that have given rise to delay and to cost factors, and I think the city manager, when he was before the Joint Oireachtas Committee back in January, I think it was, outlined some of those factors. He also indicated to the committee at that time that, assuming a favourable outcome to the remaining issues which needed to be addressed, including the issue of engagements with the European Commission, that there was an expectation that the bulk of the expenditure that had been incurred would be recovered. He has also, I think, undertaken to engage with and seek the views of the elected members of Dublin City Council, and I think likewise the other CEOs will be engaging with their elected members before a final decision is made. From the department's point of view, if you look at the scale of expenditure involved, of the order, I think when the city manager was before the Oireachtas Committee in January, I think he had a figure of 96.3 million. that is expenditure over a period of more than 10 years, but for argument's sake, just say it was 10 years, you're talking about 10 million euros per annum. And while it's absolutely critically important that that sort of expenditure, any expenditure indeed, is undertaken in a value for money way, from the department's point of view, I suppose the issue would be the extent to which that level of expenditure would be of a compromising nature in terms of the financial stability of the four authorities. And at an average expenditure of about 10 million euros per annum, compared to if you like, a combined revenue budget for the four Dublin authorities per annum of about 1.4 billion, it wouldn't be significant in the sense of sort of threatening the financial stability of the four Dublin authorities.
Okay. I mean, not to get across you, but you talk about accountability and how the CEOs will consult with the councillors, but of course the responsibility rests with the managers, not with the councillors, because this isn't a function for the councillors, it's for the management. And you're talking about a figure of just under 100 million, but which will by the end of July be about 108 million. In that meeting in January, the city manager for Dublin City Council talked about a cost of 500 million for this project were it to go ahead. That's 1/3 of the annual budget of those four local authorities. And there's no business case for this incinerator, as pointed out in the Capita report. So at what point do you guys step in? Is it when it's 2/3 of the annual funding of the four local authorities? When do you step in and say, hold on a second, guys, what exactly are you doing here?
The 500 million figure, Deputy, that the city manager referred to was the overall cost of the project, not a figure for the expected level of local authority investment. Mm-hmm. The vast bulk of the investment in this project is to come from the private finance side. From our point of view, a critical part of the process is to be satisfied that there is value for money. And under the procedures, the National Development Finance Agency is the body that has been assigned responsibility by the government for assessing projects of this kind. And I think the city manager, when he was before the Joint Oireachtas Committee, indicated that before any decision is made, the project will be resubmitted. It was previously certified as representing value for money, but in light of the revised contractual arrangements, it will go back to the National Development Finance Agency to again be certified as to whether or not it represents value for money. So that's it.
And they said that to us, and we know that one of the cases regarding conflict of interest that are with Europe are in relation to how the tender was awarded to the initial consortium that came in with the local authority. And there have been massive problems on the private financial side over a number of years, hence the delays. And you guys know that. But still you haven't intervened. And we know that the value for money exercise that's going to be resubmitted and redone is a technical exercise. It's not a business case. And in the Capita report, they said the absence of a single business case for the waste-to-energy project is a significant departure from generally accepted best practice in project government and should be addressed as a matter of priority. Are you going to demand a business case?
I think that, Deputy, the Capita report was a report prepared following on from the initial issues raised by the local government audit service, and I think it spoke in terms of there being a single business case. I don't think it was suggesting that there wasn't a business case, but that it hadn't been formally sort of compiled into one single repository, as it were. And that those issues have, as far as I understand, been addressed by the City Council since then. And I think the commentary by the local government auditor in the subsequent report in relation to the 2012 accounts was certainly commenting positively on the changes that had been made. I think in relation to the issue of a conflict of interest, without wanting to get into the detail of it, I think the City Council has addressed that issue back in, I think, February, when it was raised with them, and indeed I think it had been raised going back to 2004, 2005, and was addressed at that stage as well.
Well, it's still to be adjudicated on at the European level. Because
I don't think so, Deputy. No.
no, I don't. They haven't come back yet.
I think it was noted in correspondence between Dublin City and the European Commission, but I don't think there's an issue for adjudication by the European Commission in relation to it.
I'll have to come back to that because my recollection of the correspondence is that they're going to come back to the Dublin City Council on that point.
We'll check on that one for you, Deputy. Yeah.
You're going to be the sanctioning authority now for this project.
We were the sanctioning authority for the project, and back in 2005, I think it was, I think we issued a letter indicating that we had no objection to the project proceeding. So I suppose the sanctioning authority role is largely completed. What has to happen now is that the value for money piece just has to be re-examined, and the NDFA will be asked to do that.
So if that comes back as a positive, then the 4 city councils are free to go ahead, providing everything else is in place, without having to seek sanction from the department or the government.
The 4 Dublin authorities, yes, yeah.
And are you happy with that?
The 4 Dublin authorities have led this project from the start. The city manager has indicated that he believes the rationale for the project remains, that the project is needed for Dublin and for the wider region. And if it is certified as representing value for money, then yes, I would be satisfied with that.
What do you say to the city manager when he says the rationale for the project still remains? But the rationale for the project originally was that Dublin City Council would control all of the waste in the Dublin region, where the court ruled that couldn't happen. I mean, so what do you say when you have an engagement with him like that?
It is the rationale for the project and the statutory responsibility for the project rests with Dublin City Council.
I understand that, right? But it doesn't rest with the councillors, because that's not their responsibility, unfortunately, under the laws these days. And given all the problems that we've had with this project, the costs overrun, the time overrun, the conflict of interest case that is pending, I think, but we've definitely had an illegal procurement, and that firm had to be dismissed in January. Given all those things, the court ruling about who could control and own the waste, given the way that the partner originally changed on us, they've had delays in the financing on the private side. Given all those factors, I mean, at what point does the Department of Environment go, well, this is local government out of control, and we need to step in?
The project is at a point now, as I understand it from what the city manager has said, the project is at a point where the project finance issues are being addressed. The other issues that you raised in terms of the change of the waste market, those have been partly the reasons why the contract has been reviewed. So the contract review has taken account of those issues. The value for money certification will be provided by the National Development Finance Agency. The state is providing no funding for the construction of the project.
Right.
And the statutory responsibility rests with the 4 Dublin authorities.
So what I'm hearing from that, Mr. McCarthy, is it's not my problem.
I wouldn't like to categorise anything that I say, Deputy, as sort of being me saying that something isn't my problem, because I'm acutely concerned insofar as my own responsibilities are concerned to ensure that value for money and taxpayers' money is protected. What I would say is that rather it is not my responsibility. The statutory responsibility rests with the 4 Dublin local authorities.
But you're aware that the manager of Dublin City Council has expressed doubts about the viability of this project at a public meeting of the City Council when he first came in. I mean, I understand that it's not your statutory responsibility, and perhaps it's unfair to ask these questions if it's not, but it isn't the responsibility of the councillors because it hasn't been given to them. It is the responsibility of 4 unelected officials at management level in local authorities. The local authorities come under the Department of Environment. So, if they're getting something wrong, who is responsible for them?
Ultimately, in the same way as the issues which were there in relation to the governance of aspects of the project were subject to audit and to being raised by the Local Government Audit Service, while the decision in relation to the project rests with the 4 CEOs. There is oversight by the councillors in relation to the actual spend of the money and making sure that it is spent appropriately and accounted for. And ultimately, the budget of the local authority is the elected member's responsibility.
Yeah, but they can't stop this incinerator from going ahead. They can't stop the 4 local authorities from going ahead. And you talk about the Local Government Audit Service, and we've sought powers in this committee, the power to look into the money that goes from central fund into local government fund. Because while the Local Government Audit Service is very good, there isn't the infrastructure in place nor the powers for councillors to be able to use that information to properly hold their local authority to account. And you have a local government audit report that says the financial management for this project has been weak, financial control procedures in place were not adequate for such a project, project executive board did not meet on a formal basis and therefore no minutes of meetings were retained. I mean, after 10 years, when an audit comes back like that, you don't turn around in a matter of a year or 2 and say, we fixed all the problem, let's go ahead with a completely different project, with a completely different rationale for it, at a completely different size, and a completely changed waste market. I mean, that's just putting good time and money after bad.
The project that is, as I understand it, the project that is being proceeded with is the project as we have known it. The contractual terms, etc., are the issue that has been the subject of the re-engagement process with the private partner. And as you say, the Local Government Audit Service did, I think it was from the 2011 report, Deputy, that you were quoting from there, but as a demonstration of the extent to which the accountability arrangements through that channel work. I think what the auditor has to say in the 2012 report is evidence of that. And I think in terms of the general oversight, the Local Government Reform Act, which has now come into place, has introduced a number of elements to strengthen that oversight role, not least in relation to putting internal audit committees on a statutory footing and requiring engagement between the auditor and the audit committee during the audit process. So I think there have been a number of further strengthenings of the audit system. And in relation to this project, the issue of sort of following central government money into the project, apart from the very initial funding provided, not for the construction of the project, there is no central government funding going towards this project.
I'll draw to a conclusion, Chair, but I mean, have you any worries with Dublin City Council or any of the 4 authorities involved who pursued this project at this expense and built nothing for a decade and are happy to continue with it? After 4 very negative reports, problems at the European level, 12 to 16 months, there'll be another submission for a value for money, a technical exercise on the capital costs in a public-private partnership, not a value for money, or not a business case as we would understand one. And you're happy that it's going to continue?
I think in terms of the approach that the 4 Dublin local authorities have taken, I think they have provided both to the committee here in the House and elsewhere, I think they have provided explanations for why the project has taken longer, with a range of factors involved, some of them outside the Council's own control. Some of them relating to engagements from the European Commission arising from complaints that have been made and have now been determined. And with that process and with the value for money assessment that the National Development Finance Agency will carry out, then I think the 4 Dublin authorities, who have the statutory responsibility, have gone through a process to satisfy themselves that this is the appropriate way forward, because there is no central government funding here. This is an issue for the 4 Dublin authorities and their capacity to recover the expenditure that has already been incurred.
Are you worried about legal proceedings being taken against your department should the contract collapse and should this project not go ahead? Because of delays that happened at the department in the granting of certain licenses.
The department is not a party to the contract, and I don't think it would be helpful for me to speculate, Deputy, in relation to.
The department isn't preparing, or hasn't had not a briefing, but hasn't reviewed the possibility of a legal challenge against the department.
Not specifically to my knowledge,
okay.
no.
Okay. And so, as a final question, has anyone the power to stop this project from happening, other than the four managers of the local authorities?
The responsibility for the decision in relation to whether this project proceeds or not, as the city manager has said, is one for the four CEOs to take, but they will consult with the elected members as part of that process.
Consult?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Chair.
Before we move from that issue, I just want to agree with everything that has been asked by Deputy Murphy. I think that the project itself is the best example, or one of the best examples, of how dysfunctional the whole process is in relation to this type of project. You know, local authorities versus central funding and so on. And I understand your position in this, Mr. McCarthy. You're part of it, but you're not part of it, that type of position. But at the same time, while you say it's not central money from central government, it is money from, it's taxpayers' money. It's ratepayers' money. And there isn't a facility at council level to give this the type of scrutiny that it deserves. And county managers generally plough on in projects like this, and the elected members have very little input in terms, as Deputy Murphy has said, who will stop this project. And I agree with everything that he has said, and it concerns me greatly that the type of reform that is needed here to address issues like this hasn't happened. Now, we had Mr. Watton here from the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, and if my memory serves me correctly, he generally agreed that the local authority and their spend should come under the remit of the CNAG in some guise, in some way, shape or form, because there isn't a forum like this locally where value for money audits or value for money reports, or even the audit itself, is actually debated in public around these issues. And that's a weakness. There's a weakness of management, there's a weakness of controls on money, and there's an issue around how that money was spent, in my opinion. And I would ask the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, in terms of how this money is being spent, surely you must be concerned, and surely you must see within what's going on the need for some intervention to bring clarity to this, and to perhaps suggest ways by which the spend that has already occurred should be examined and teased out, and the expend that may happen, and the project itself will be subjected to some type of central government or central administration oversight and scrutiny. And I would ask your department to engage with local government, or these four managers that are been spoken about here, to determine just exactly what is happening, so that someone takes responsibility for the issue itself and for how it's progressing, particularly given the concerns expressed by Deputy Murphy, who has raised this here on numerous occasions. I'm just asking that you would give us back a note on how you see it, a written note on how you see it within the department. I don't expect you to respond today, but I do expect a written report, if you like, or commentary on how you see this issue relative to public expenditure. Because taking all of the positions away and put them to one side, it is taxpayers' money that is central to this, and people want to know. And as I understand it, from comments made by Deputy Murphy, that councillors too are concerned about it. So if you would examine the structures, who intervenes, who can intervene, and give us your views on all of this in correspondence so that we can pursue the matter further.